Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our dear sister, and this is the translation of the message that she sent to me. The translation of that message, it reads like this. Hello, Brother Nanshi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? I have come here because I have my own story that I want to share with you. My name is Tariro, not your real name, and I am 29 years old. I do come from Zim, but I do go back home. Sometimes I am staying here because of the kind of a job that I do. I also have 2 kids with 2 South African men, and I have been living here in Soweto for the past few years. I am writing this confession because I need to unburden myself to seek help. I have made terrible choices in my life, and now I am caught in a cycle of darkness that I don't even know how to escape. It is always I fighting with the demons. My own grandmother, she was the one who made me to be the woman that I am right now. So she took a razor blade and she made some markings in Shona, they call it Nyora. So after that, she then took some herbs and then she started to put the herbs on those markings that she had done on my private parts using a razor blade. So the purpose of that is that if I sleep with a man, that man will go crazy. He might even want to dump his own wife. So my grandmother did this because she wanted me to get married to a man that was very, very rich. I came to South Africa also in search of a better life after I was tired of sleeping around back in Zim. And I was also working as a prostitute back home in Zim because of these things that were done to me by my grandmother. I can't just be a normal woman because every man always wants to be with me. So I started prostituting myself from a very young age. Back home in Zim, things were tough and I could not see a future for myself. When I arrived in Soweto, I was desperate. I didn't have much education, and finding a decent job was nearly impossible. I was working at this other saloon. So the man who first impregnated me, he took me in as his girlfriend, his mistress. So he was working as a police officer. I would always take advantage of him. When he would be home with his wife, I would bring in a lot of boyfriends. And then when he would be with me, I'll pretend as if I was okay. So he did not know that I was a prostitute. It wasn't what I wanted for myself as such, but it was the only way that I could make ends meet. As I worked the streets, I met all kinds of men. Some were kind, some were cruel, some were almost like serial killers, but they all had one thing in common. They paid for what they wanted. Until one day, when I met a man whom I'll call Tabo, not his real name. He was different. He was wealthy, well-dressed and married. He came to me because his marriage, he said, was falling apart and he was looking for comfort. At first, I didn't think much of it. I had been with married men before, but as for Tabo, he was totally different. He was a man that was generous, and when it came to money, he did not care how much he gave me. He gave me a lot of money and gifts that I had never dreamt of. For the first time, I felt like I had some control over my life, but I was greedy. Even though he was providing for me, and mind you, that police officer guy, he was the one who was paying for the rentals, for the food, for everything, since I was pregnant for him. But instead of me being comfortable with what he was offering me, I wanted more and more and more. This man, when I looked at him, I wanted more than his money. I wanted to keep Tabo close to make sure that he never left me. I knew of women who had used charms to bind men to them, but I did not want those type of charms. I wanted those ones that were really strong. That was when I went back home for Christmas holidays, and when I was home, that was when I spoke with my grandmother, who went with me to a traditional healer who gave me a charm and told me how to use it. And these charms, always you are warned not to use a lot, because the moment that you use a lot of these love charms, something bad will happen to that person. So the charm that I was being given, it was going to tie Tabo to me in a way that could have serious implications, but I did not care. I wanted the financial security that Tabo could offer for me. I used the charm and totally it worked. Tabo became obsessed with me. He would call me constantly, wanting to know where I was and who I was with. He started spending more and more time with me and less with his wife. At first, I was thrilled. I thought that I had everything just under control, but soon his obsession became frightening. He was no longer the kind, generous man that I had wanted. He was more possessive, jealous, and even violent at times. And there was this other time when he came to me and I refused to sleep with him. Mind you, I still had these tribal markings on my private parts that makes a man who would have slept with me before to go crazy. So at that time, I was bored with the way that he was possessive over me, forgetting that he was a man who was being controlled by a spirit, him being in love with me. So on that night, that was when he told me that he was willing to kill himself, and I said, kill yourself. He got up and he grabbed his gun and he wanted to shoot himself, but he said, I won't shoot myself first, I will have to end your life. When he did that, that was when I started to fear for my life. Tabo's wife also began to suspect that something was wrong, and she confronted him, and he denied that he was having an affair with another woman. But I think that the tension between them grew. One night, that was when Tabo called me in rage. He said that his wife had found out about us and she was going to leave him. He was blaming me because he had said, are you going to be with me if my wife leaves me? And they said that, you know that I have kids with another man, so it is going to be possible. I do not want you guys to fight over me. And he blamed me and he said that I had ruined his life. I was terrified. So then during the night, I packed my things and I fled back, and I stayed first with my friend. The next morning, that was when I fled back to Zim. I thought that by leaving, I could escape the mess that I had created, but the nightmare did not end there. A few weeks after I had returned back to Zim, that was when I heard through some other women that were friends with me that Tabo had murdered his wife. He had snapped in a fit of rage and killed her. When I heard the news, I was numb. I couldn't believe that my actions had led to such a tragedy. I tried to convince myself that it was not my fault, but deep down, I knew that the charm that I had used had set off a chain of events that ended in death. I thought that by running away, I could leave it all behind, but the guilt followed me. I tried to start a new life in Zim, but I could not find peace. The darkness that I had invited into my life would not let go. I was haunted by nightmares, and I knew that I was being punished for what I had done. A few months, I returned to South Africa. I tried to stay away from the life that I had lived before, but I was broke, and old habits, they do die hard. I found myself back again on the streets doing what I had to do to survive, but this time I tried to be more cautious, and I told myself that I should never use the charms again. Like, I don't want to bring any more death or destruction into anyone's life, but life is a way of pulling you back into the darkness, especially when you are desperate. I met a Zambian truck driver whom I will call John, not his real name. He is a man who is kind and generous. I don't know why does the devil keep on throwing these men that are kind to me, just like what Tabo was. He treats me well. He gives me money to support myself, and he also tells me that he wants to have a child with me. But I am afraid that one day he might live just like others. So the fear of losing him, it is driving me back to do the things that I did to Tabo, even though I am telling myself that it is going to be different. I am not going to use a lot of charms on him. To tell you the truth, I have already started using the charms on him. Not a lot, just a little bit. Whenever he calls me to the truck stop, when I go there, I go and I give him some food that will be already cooked, and I would have placed some charms in the food. He is becoming possessive and jealous. I am starting to feel the same fear that I felt before. When he is on the road, sometimes he calls me in the middle of the night and he says, can you do a video call? And then I do, and he says, can you show me the room? And I do that. The way that he is jealous, I feel like he is headed in the same direction that the men that I used to date went. And I am writing this because I need help. I don't want to do this to this man. I don't want to use charms to manipulate people anymore. I know what I have done in the past, and I am scared. I am asking for advice for anyone who has been through similar challenges? How do I break free from this cycle? How do I stop using these charms? How do I find peace? Please assist me. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear sister. That was the translation of the message that she sent to me. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world. Yo.